hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Thursday, May 10th, 2018. Yep, not even a month and 7 days, Duane. 38, less than that, like 36 days to the World Cup. And we'll talk about this more tomorrow on World Cup Today. But today it is Thursday, midweek review. 5 games last night in Major League Soccer, Duane. And yeah, it was not fun for Toronto, not fun for Montreal. 2 losses. Even Atlanta lost at home. That's the type of night it was.
Yeah, the Atlanta, well, obviously the red card affected that. We'll talk about these games in more detail moving forward. Not a good day, obviously, for Montreal or for Toronto. I was at the Toronto game. Kevin saw the Montreal game in detail, so we'll do a bit of a mini Canadian review here in a minute. But kind of a bizarro night in MLS. Although we did nail the one thing yesterday, guaranteed win night in Columbus. They did get the win over the hapless Philadelphia Union. Are the Philadelphia Union now the TFC of old? Have they become TFC 2020, 2012, 2013, just kind of floating around there? Or is that DC United maybe? Because DC United might have I don't know.
It's maybe both. But I remember you saying, yeah, it's against Philly, so it's 3 points. And it was the case. It wasn't easy. It took 1 goal for Columbus. But yeah, it was. Well, how can I say this? There were some good moments, bad moments in my evening. I started watching Atlanta, Kansas City, and I was surprised by Kansas City. Yes, Atlanta, you mentioned the red card, and of course it changed the game, but I was still left on my appetite a bit, right? We were talking about this game yesterday as, a battle at the top, battle best of each conferences facing each other. Left me on my appetite a bit. Disappointing that had to be a red card and a one-sided win. But still, Kansas City, my prediction, Duane, and yes, you're going to say it's my prediction for 4 years in a row, and eventually I'm going to be right, but maybe this year is the one.
Well, no, yeah, they are playing well. They're playing well defensively, and this is I think one of those things that a lot of people in Kansas City hold up quite dear to their heart. That whenever I bring up the offense wins championship and sells ticket line about MLS, which is backed up statistically, I always get some pushback from KC folks who like to point out their championship team was very defensively oriented. Although I like to throw back that they also scored a lot of goals. And last night I think was an indication of that. You have one of the high flying teams in MLS in Atlanta being shut down by KC. There was a VAR decision that took a goal back in the game. Judge your own conclusion there. I'm not going to talk about VAR any more than that today, despite the fact that Greg Vanney made it a major part of his press conference again yesterday. There was another missed call that went against TFC, although the argument would be that there was a missed call that went against Seattle too during the game. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Was it an indication that the West is stronger than we think? Was it an indication that Atlanta is weaker than we think? I think it was neither. I think it was an indication that on the night that Kansas City figured out a way to shut them down, got a little break on the VAR. Then, Brad Guzan lost. Well, I don't know if he lost his mind so much as he probably did lose his mind a little bit. That is always a question. You don't need to go out that strong to take the guy out like that. Yes, just go try and get big at the top of the box and hope that they miss the net, because you know what? There's more of a chance that you're going to force them wide and they're going to miss the open net than there is that you're actually going to make a successful play when you're charging that far out of the goal at that point either. And you saw there's an Instagram photo of the I forget what player was fouled off the top of my head here, but of his Instagram of his leg after the fact, and Guzan got him real well. It was a well-deserved red card. No one can possibly be arguing that one.
No, of course, and it's never easy too when you're a keeper and it's like one of the only positions where I played like at a better level than the other ones was keeper. And I'm not comparing myself to Guzan or any keeper that are playing right now in the entire world. But when you get off your line that bad, that far, you're caught in no man's land. You kind of have to kill the play. You either have to make sure the ball is getting away from your net, do whatever it takes to stop the play. And he committed. He overcommitted. Had to kill the play, but didn't have to kill the guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I say, it's hard to make a decision that quickly, right? When you're out and you've already made the mistake of charging out. You thought you were going to get to the ball. You get out there, I'm not going to get to the ball. So you have a choice then. Do you look foolish and just let them charge by you? Or do you take the guy out knowing you're going to get a red card? And I think that as hard as this decision is at a professional level, you have to kind of do a cost benefit at that point. And it's better to stay 11v11 and give up the goal than it is, I think, to go down to 10 and still end up giving up the goal almost, right? So although it was outside the box, it wasn't a penalty. But it's well, it was a penalty. I'm trying to think right now. I'm trying to remember. Sorry, guys, but it was the first of 5 game. It was the first of the 5 game, first game of the night. So we got 4 games in our mind that are fresher. But no, it's fascinating. I still kind of love watching Atlanta, win or lose. It's kind of fun to watch them. Fun the atmosphere, watch their play, watch how they move forward, how they can break down defenses and midfield in 1 or 2 movements. I have to say it, even though we talked about it since last year, Atlanta of this year is even more fun to watch. And yeah, there's something about, we talk a lot about identity and teams and playing a nice brand of soccer. Well, it's true. It's kind of more fun to watch Atlanta than it is to watch, I don't know, Vancouver. Kansas City.
Kansas City.
For sure. I mean, LAFC's like that for me too. They're my must-watch game, and I tend to put them.
You like the chaos.
For the Canadian teams, I watch them next usually, right? When I'm if I have to watch them on replay or if I have a chance to watch them live. I did have a chance to watch the end of that game live last night, and Mark-Anthony Kaye got the goal, a little bit of a lucky one, but nonetheless.
He got it. He was a poacher's goal, but he was there. He was there at the right time, got the goal, and his first goal in Major League Soccer, first goal for LAFC. Congratulations, Mark-Anthony Kaye.
Exactly, and LAFC with the win. A win that you would have expected over Minnesota, and they ended up getting it. But points in the pocket, right? That's what we keep saying. Points in the border, points in the pocket.
Yeah. All right. The other results last night were Columbus, Philadelphia. We talked about it. So let's move to the Canadian Review. Toronto, Seattle rematch of the last 2 MLS Cup at home. But before the game, it was announced that Josie Altidore will miss between 4 and 6 weeks with an injury, foot injury.
Surgery. Yeah, he had surgery yesterday.
And Toronto conceded twice at home for another defeat. Still bottom of the Eastern Conference. And I don't know.
Bottom. DC's below them.
Okay, fine. True, DC. Yeah. We'll talk about DC in a minute. But when you find yourself now another defeat, and we've said it yesterday, Duane, there's a chance and they can start to rise on the table, on the standing in the next few months. It'll climb slowly but surely. But is time slipping away already? Because there's some Toronto fans that wrote to us since last night saying, yeah, I'm not confident anymore. This is starting to trouble me.
PTSD, man.
2012 ain't that far away.
You got to look at the game in isolation. And the first off, TFC's early season form is almost entirely based on injuries in CCL, and they're kind of tied in together, right? So you have to assume they're going to get healthy. There's a couple things to look at this. There's no doubt that losing the game yesterday is troublesome in the sense that you lost points at home. And they have already dropped too many points at home if you're going to talk about a shield. And I haven't been completely willing to ignore the possibility that they could have some crazy 2.2 points per game finish based on the talent level that's there and challenge for a shield. I think after watching that last night, I think I realized, no, that's probably off the table. But it's not off the table for the reason that a lot of fans that are panicking right now will put out there. They're going to find fault in everything TFC did last night. I actually watched the game from the stand, so I had an opportunity to hear the moaning firsthand. And there was a lot of completely irrational moaning out there. And fans get a fan, so I'm not blaming you beyond the fact that I'm going to say that it's irrational. I heard at one point someone screaming at Jonathan Osorio that his brother was better. His brother got cut from TFC 3. So, no, that's just not right. But and he scored too. And Osario's been playing great this year.
Oh, the salt. People are salty so quick. Doesn't take a lot. You just won the cup. You just won the cup 5 5 months ago, and you're already turning on your best player, one of your best players.
That was my general observation from sitting in the crowd is how how the expectations have risen to like insane levels. They expect them to be a La Liga team right now. Like they were working chance after chance last night. And look, this is what I'll say about Seattle. Seattle executed their game plan. This is the game plan they wanted to execute last December. They played the same style, and this time it worked. And it worked largely because of a couple defensive hiccups at the back with that makeshift back line, which is, you can look at that and go, and try and exaggerate the problems from last night if you wish, and a lot of fans do. But the reality is that the makeshift back line's been fine the last couple games that they played. This was just kind of illustrating maybe that you need to get those players back in position. And we are looking at Mavinga, who has especially been missed, and maybe the player that's missed even more than Josie, right? And Hagelin is back in the mix soon as well. I think you might see Hagelin maybe make an appearance for 2 if he has a chance. I can't see them bringing Mavinga down that far. That would be a bit crazy in the USL. But nonetheless, those 2 players, you put them back in there. You allow Bradley to move back into his natural position, and suddenly this team is a lot more likely. This is the thing, though. Take a step back, TFC fans. If you have DAZN and you have or some other way to watch this a second time, watch it a second time and put the frustration aside. You know what the result is, and watch it objectively. They produced, I don't know what the expected goals were for the game, but they have to be at least 4 or 5 for TFC because they produced insane amount of chances. They had 28 shots on goal. They were up there with the same sort of level that they had in the MLS Cup Finals. And once again, Seattle, it was, in terms of shots on target, it was 13-3. They hit a post. They had a ball cleared off the line at the last second. They did actually score the goal as well. So they produced more than enough offense to win that game last night. They just could not get that last turn of the ball, that last centimeter, to have that player just a step further out of position to get the win. And sometimes that just happens in soccer. But what this illustrates, though, is how, and where I will criticize TFC, is how problematic it was to get nothing out of those games in the CCL, to completely dump them off the chart. And if you go back and listen to our archives, that's what I was saying. I don't think that they should be rotating this much. I get that the CCL is important, but you need some damn points on the board. Points in the pocket or points on the board, points in the board or points in the pocket. And they were leaving too many off. And now, when you have a game like last night, where 9 times out of 10 you win, but that 10th time rolls up, it suddenly is exasperated because you left so many points on the board early on, and now they need to get all of them. Are they in danger of the playoffs? No, they're not. The bottom of the East is, they're still, like we saw it against Philadelphia, they're just better than those teams, and they're going to get points against them when they play them directly. So they will claw their way into the playoffs. I don't have any doubt about that. Is the top of the East out of the question? And that's kind of where I'm at with that, because I think they've left too many points off the board already. And to expect them to play perfect the rest of the way beggars belief, because
it won't happen. Yeah,
you're going to have games like last night where you outplay them and lose.
10 uncles going to cost you a game here and there, and you're going to have a situation where one player against the opposing team is going to play out of his mind, either like score 3 goals when it's like a nobody, and you're going to lose those games. So yeah, there's going to be a few results by the end of the season where it's not a favorable result, even though you might play well, and those results does weigh more heavily on your shoulder because you left points on the field earlier in the season. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I want a couple things. Because we're going to talk about Wayne Rooney, and that looks like that signing is official now, or close to official. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. So I was looking at some advanced numbers today, and just by happenstance, I was looking at TFC's, in particular the Javenkos. He's playing out of his head right now. He's producing more offense, more chances than he has at any other point in his TFC career right now. That may seem hard to believe, but he really is. Like, take a look at the underlying numbers. I know not everyone that listens to the show is into that stuff, but if you are, just have a peek. Like his shots per game, his key passes per game, what he's creating, expected goals, all that stuff. Yeah. It's off the damn charts right now. And if you put a Josie out there to give him more space, you have to think, those goals are going to really start to flow in soon enough, because that's just statistically speaking what happens, right? Yeah. You're not going to hit the post every time you do those free kicks. And that was a great free kick attempt he made last night. And it was unlucky the way it fell to Chapman so quickly that he wasn't able to handle it for the completely open net. Another example of what goes in 9 times out of 10, right?
Yeah, and you were mentioning the numbers, and expected goals chances created. Those two stats, Duane, are probably my most favorite stats nowadays. Are probably the ones I looked at most. Shots on net as a whole, I don't necessarily like that stat. I like maybe entirely shots, and then you see which one were blocked, which one were on target, which one were off target. So you get like a percentage of play and percentage of shot and how many outputs of goals. But expected goals and chance created for me are what I keep an eye on, because you want to look at things, the game as a whole, or example, the momentum of a team, or just the output of creativity. And it's hard to find sometimes a stat that really highlights the output of creativity. But expected goals and chances created, even though those chances sometimes are not buried, you can have a great save by the keeper, you can have a great diving slide by the center back and he stops a shot. But those statistics highlights potential goals that happen in the game, goals that might have gone in. And if you create more of those than less, just by pure probabilities, you should be able to score more goals. So I really like those chances, and it's usually a chance created is a chance that has been created in a way that's replicable too. That's one of the importance of that stat. So no, those two stats that you mentioned are the ones that I've been using to get better at FIFA, because I'm trying to be good at FIFA, Duane. I've been trying to play competitive, and yesterday, actually recorded myself playing a game. It's on our YouTube page right now. You can see myself score a free kick goal at the 90th minute to tie it up, Duane. That was probably my most important moment as a soccer player on FIFA. Live, recorded. It was awesome. But back to soccer.
Back to real soccer anyway, non-video soccer. No, expected goals. This is for people that dismiss stats altogether. Oh, it's all about the goals. Yeah, sure, you're right. Absolutely. But you're misunderstanding how we're using the numbers. We're using the numbers to indicate what's likely to happen moving forward, not to illustrate what happened in the past, right? And that's how, when people dismiss stats out of mind, that's what they're doing. They're going, well, that's not telling you a story of what happened. And I say, no, but it's telling you a story of what likely is to happen moving forward based on the play that we're seeing right now. And that's based on the play that we're seeing right now. There's not a lot out there indicating that Toronto's going to continue to struggle in terms of points and goals at the level that they are right now. They're going to turn it around because luck evens itself out, and that's the basic end of it. And no one likes to talk about luck. The L word in sports is the worst word in sports. No one ever wants to admit that they win lucky. No one ever wants to let their team off by saying that they lose unluckily, right?
So the Raptors were unlucky, right? That's why.
No, the Raptors were completely outplayed. But
sorry.
That's that's another thing interesting too. I think we should have another stats conversation on this in the days ahead when things calm down. I don't know when that's going to happen because, but
Torres will sing for Montreal before that happens. So
yeah, that's the Raptors. It was more about like having like my Capitals finally beating the Penguins, like that mental hurdle stuff out there. That's not measurable. You're right. And that is one of the things that allows those of us that like stats and likes to look at the numbers to still maintain a magical feeling about sport, because there are things that are intangible still, regardless of how many numbers you put on it.
Yeah.
And maybe what is happening now with TFC might be an intangible thing. Maybe it is a hangover. I don't think from the MLS Cup, but I think it might be a hangover from the CCL, and that's something they're going to have to overcome.
All right, let's talk about Montreal to finish the midweek review. Montreal lost 1-0 to Chicago, and the result of the game is not necessarily indicative of how the game happened. Like, Chicago barely got a shot on net the entire game, barely got anything dangerous against Evan Bush, but at the 88th minute, it was 0-0. Montreal did not take advantage of their chances during the game. Jackson had a few looks, wasn't able to finish. Piatti got a few looks as well, wasn't able to get a goal on the night. And then the 88th minute, you got yourself with Kevin Ellis close to the box, in the box actually, shooting on target, what looks like a non-dangerous shot. The angles are defended well. The passing lanes are blocked. Fanny, Piet, and the defense is there. The right spots. They're blocking everything. Evan Bush is well positioned. And the shot hits Samuel Piet's arm, deflects next to Bush, goes into the net. Nothing no one can do about it. And it's 1-0. And there's not enough time for Montreal to go turn around and score. And Montreal loses on the road in a game where defensively they played a lot better than the last few weeks. The presence of Rod Fanny, I think, has a lot to say about this defensive performance. But At the end of the day, you don't score your chances, you don't score your expected goals and your created chances. They have one, they bury it, you still lose, even if you have 5 chances. If you don't bury them and your opponent buried their one, well, you lose the game.
What did we just talk about luck a minute ago, right?
Chicago is lucky because they ain't fast. Wow, the slowest team in Major League Soccer. When Nikolic trying to play the hold-up man and getting the ball and trying to restart things, jeez, gear doesn't shift that quickly, you know? I think he's a manual and his clutch is slipping because there ain't no acceleration there.
Yeah, it's I mean, luck is part of everything, and the speed is a part of everything, right? And there's a lot of teams in MLS that are trying to build around that speed idea right now. The Fire are an interesting team in the sense that, you know, Nikolic can score, and Schweinsteiger still has talent, and you see that when you watch them play live. But there's just something missing about the rest of that team, and although they have got some results kind of going their way recently, and I don't think they're a bad team. I think that they're a team that's going to finish around 5, 6, 7, right? So, interesting team there. But in terms of the impact, to look at this, I would talk about this much the same way I just talked about the TFC game, in the sense that you can lose your mind over the points dropped, and that's, you know, understandable from a purely scoreboard perspective. But I think if you take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture, you can say, okay, well, they've been having all sorts of problems defensively, and they did tighten the defensive ship up, and they were minutes away from a clean sheet and a point on the road, and something unfortunate, unlucky happened to them. And if you take a step back and look at it that way, you can look at it as a building block. But when you take the step forward again and you go, yeah, but they drop more points, then yeah, I get when you're talking about pure now, how it's frustrating. But in terms of predicting and suggesting what's going to happen moving forward, there are positives to take away. Am I not, you know, from your perspective, am I correct on that?
Yeah, you're correct too. And I've dissected the season in increments of 4 or 5 games so far. And in the one that I'm at right now, it was the one that started on April 21st with LAFC. In the next 5 games, there's one left in those, and that's a home game. And I was saying Montreal needs to have 2 wins in those 5. LAFC was always going to be difficult because of their momentum in the beginning of the season, out of conference opponents. So it's almost a bonus, and you not necessarily lose that much losing points to them. So I was thinking there's going to be 5 games. There was LAFC. There's going to be, there was at home against New England and Philly. Those are the 2 ones that really Montreal needed to win. They won the one against New England. The next one is Saturday against Philly. They have a good chance there. The bonus one was last night in Chicago, and I was not expecting a win just because of the travel, 3 games in 8 days. Not an easy schedule with the injury that Montreal had at the defense as well. So I was not expecting a win. I was just expecting you mentioned the word building block, but I would just continue the defensive momentum. Continue to not break that confidence, right? If you let go in 4 goals on the road, guess what? All the work that you did the week before just goes out the window because you just lost that confidence and you lost that trust. I think it does show a big difference when you see Montreal able to only concede 1 goal, and it's a lucky goal, but you don't lose that momentum of the New England win. You played well defensively. You got lucky. You did a few rotation. Come back Saturday, you win against Philly. You keep yourself in the conversation. You keep yourself 7th, 8th, or 6th, not too far away from a New England in 6th position, and you're in the conversation. That's all Montreal needs to do is stay afloat. Stay between 8th and 6th. 8th or 7th, ideally. Of course, 6th would be better. Stay there until the late July, early August, when Rémi Garde has really discovered this league. When Rémi Garde has gone shopping a bit and maybe brought back 1 or 2 players, and then you start to get hot, and then you can maybe make a push for the playoffs. But for Montreal, the discovery year, you keep yourself around 7th and 8th at a shot at the playoffs, and that's about our predictions.
Well, and look, this is where Montreal is right now. They are in a building process. Whether that's going to take 2 years or 2 months, we don't know. But they're in a building process right now, so they want to stay relatively competitive and work on the issues that they need to. And they're a team that, at this stage of their development, isn't really thinking supporter shield stuff. They aren't really thinking to be, amongst the best teams in the league. What they want to do is build themselves so they're peaking at the right time, so to give themselves a chance to do something at the end of the year, whether that's a push that almost gets them to a playoffs, whether that's a push that gets them into the playoffs and maybe wins a game there, does something to excite the fan base for the next season, or hits the miracle run, which, everyone, once they get into a playoff, will say that. That's what Montreal is. They don't need to be dominant week in, week out. No one expects them to be. They want to build on that. I think Montreal, and I would expect that based on a lot of things I'm seeing there, that they will take the Voyageurs Cup more seriously than Vancouver was. So that's the other thing that they can have, right there to build towards, to be peaking in July or to be better in July, so that they can give likely TFC a good run. No disrespect to the Fury when I say that, but I would expect that TFC would expect to beat a near the bottom of the table USL team in the Voyageurs Cup. So that's the other option that they have to play for. And that's probably their first goal right now, I suspect, because they it's a club with a history in the CCL. They looked at what TFC did and they want to sort of slap them down and make sure they don't get a chance to do it again. The old rivals and the likelihood of another Montreal-Toronto Voyageurs Cup final, to me, based on what I see out of Vancouver, I see that happening, and it's a good opportunity for the Impact to get a little payback for the couple.
My money's on Blainville. I'm cheering for AS Blainville. No, it's not gonna happen. AS Blainville versus Oakville Blue Devil, and the winner goes into the Canadian Championship. Maybe the winner goes on to play Ottawa actually, and then goes into the Canadian Championship.
And unfortunately, they scheduled the home leg in Oakville during the TFC game. Otherwise, a lot of people would have went out to it. I think that's unfortunate they did that, but we'll talk about that when it happens. We'll make sure we get a bit of a preview for the quarterfinals of the. Or not the quarterfinals, the play-in game for the Voyageurs Cup, first time in history, and it opens up to make it closer to an open competition. We'll have more conversation about that in the days ahead, but there's a lot of soccer happening right now, Kevin.
Yep, a lot of soccer, and the World Cup hasn't started yet. Let's finish this show by talking about a rumor and information we talked about yesterday, but it's pretty much confirmed now, and by the time you listen to this podcast, maybe it is already announced, but Wayne Rooney going to DC United. Everton has been made aware. $12.5 million apparently. That's insane. It's just terrible waste of resources and money. But Wayne Rooney going to DC United. I don't believe the $12.5 million figure. I still can't believe it. But anyways.
About $20 million.
It's insane. What transfer?
It's a lot of money that, yeah. Well, okay. Think about it this way. We talked about this, how I'm a little ambivalent to this yesterday. And as I was looking at the numbers today, I'm increasingly sort of taking a bit of a step back in terms of his ability to produce here, if the desire is there. That's my underline. If the desire and fitness is there, yeah, there are enough indicators that Wayne Rooney can be successful to a point in Major League Soccer. And I compared his numbers to what Johnny Russell, Kansas City's player they brought in from Derby, is doing. And that's kind of, I think, where he's at right now in his career. He might be a little bit better than him. And Johnny Russell's doing okay, but he's not ripping the league apart. That's sort of what I'd say about that. And Wayne Rooney playing for a bad DC United team, I think probably would do okay, but wouldn't rip the league apart. Is he worth $20 million? I don't know the rates right now. So about $20 million, 12.5 million pounds. Depends on how many shirts he sells. And that's kind of a crass way to put it, but that's what it's about.
That's a lot of shirts. Well, not that lot, because MLS shirts are expensive.
And how many tickets he sells and how much TV it helps them. And yeah, there's other factors when you're talking about how much he's worth in terms of the transfer market, but he's not getting 12.5 million. They're not paying 12.5 million pounds for Wayne Rooney, the footballer. They're paying 12.5 million pounds for Wayne Rooney, the star of the Nike World Cup ads for the last 3 World Cups, right?
For Rooney, the brand. That's what they're paying for. They're paying for Rooney's brand.
Well, exactly. Someone, I forget who it was, they put out, if you remember the World Cup ads, and I can't wait to see the new one. They say what you want about crass commercialism and the World Cup. Those Nike ads they put out every time are always fun, and we always remember them. And the music, it always gets associated in our brains with how it plays out. So I'm looking forward to see what they do with the new one, and it won't be long until we see that. But the one where he was, they do the two parallel existences. The one where he wins the World Cup and the one where he doesn't win the World Cup. And the one where he doesn't, he opens up the trailer and he's like fat and got like a long scraggly beard. And someone put a screen capture that out and said Wayne Rooney when DC United calls, with the implication. Anyway.
Yep, and we all know that's what Rooney's going to look like in 15 years anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the tendency to come into training camp not as the same shape as he left the season before. But there's a few players.
Gascoigne, he's a new version of that, right?
He's the new Gaza. That's exactly what he is. Kind of looks similar, too. But anyways, let's finish.
There's a great, if you're interested in other podcasts, and you always listen to ours first, of course, but there's a great one out there. There's a documentary of the 1990 World Cup looking at England, and it talks about Gaza, and I highly recommend that one if you need a narrative type podcast to listen to in the future. I'll get a link out on my feed too. Anyway, that's an aside.
Kind of like the Gaza story, it's the redemption arc, always fun. He's a real guy, a real man, made mistakes. Let the moment get to him. Yeah, he's one of us. I love him.
Well, that nostalgia around the 1990 World Cup, I'm seeing more and more of that. And look, Kevin, you're probably too young to remember 90.
I don't remember 90. I remember because I watched things on it, but I was 4 damn years old.
Yeah, I remember 90. It's probably the World Cup that, like, I have memories of it. I'm the same with 86. I have memories
94.
Of 86.
I remember 94. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks during that, so I remember clearly USA 94 with Brazil winning.
There you go. Yeah, so 90s my similar story. Like, that's the one that I first fell in love with. So I love all this recent nostalgia for the 1990 World Cup, which was long thought to be the worst World Cup in memory. But now there's all these people that are coming up to say, oh no, it did this and it did that and it did this. And the documentary that I'm talking about argues that the 1990 World Cup really saved English football and was sort of what pushed it forward and created the Premier League a couple years later, because without the unexpected success of that England team in 1990, they got to the semifinals, got to kicks in the semifinals.
Lost in penalties. I was going to say lost in penalties to Gaza missing a penalty. That's just a famous story. That's why he started drinking after. So that's why.
At any rate, it's a interesting sort of a narrative and philosophy out there. But we're getting way off topic here. Speaking of World Cup, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We normally do it on Thursdays, but because of the midweek games this week, we bumped it. Still looking to completely solidify what we'll be talking about tomorrow, but certainly there'll be a big focus on the World Cup. On that note, Kevin, just as a quick aside, a bit of a housekeeping here. If anyone out there is interested in being part of a team of Christian Jack's World Cup auction, which takes place at Upper Bob's, give me a shout. I'm looking for a third person for my team. So if you're out there and interested and going to be in the Toronto area during that, it's a lot of fun that night and it helps a good cause. We'll probably talk to Christian or someone else around that in the days leading up to it. So just give me a shout on that one. But on that note, Kevin, I'm going to shut up and let you, as always, wrap the show.
You can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee, the show at Soccer Today SPN. Thanks to all the new patrons, and if you like what we do, you like to support us financially, go to patreon.com/sports podcasting network. And on top of it, when you pledge $2 or more a month, you get a bonus Canadian soccer show, the Two Solitude Soccer Podcast, once a week, talking about Canadian soccer and the Canadian Premier League. We're recording a few interviews in the next few days. Maybe Two Solitudes coming out either tomorrow or Saturday, where we're working on when we're recording the entire shows. But great guests, great interviews, wink, wink, owners. This is what we're working on for the Canadian Premier League. So you're going to have great interviews on the Two Solitude Soccer Podcast, patreon.com/sports podcasting network. And as always, until tomorrow, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.